Hello, 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 New Haven, Greater New Haven, and welcome back to Arts Respond on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven. I am your host, Lucy Gellman, and I am so excited today to be here with two wonderful folks from the Milford Arts Council, or the MAC, Raheem Nelson and Paige Miglio or Milio? I should have asked you about that beforehand. I'm so sorry. Oh, I think you're muted.
It's Miglio.
You sound beautiful, beautiful. Great. So first of all, welcome to Arts Respond. I'm so happy you're here. I feel like we're all trying to like batten down the hatches and get our lives together before this snowstorm. And so I really appreciate both of you taking the time with me. So I do want to talk about this new initiative that the MAC is rolling out that's really exciting called Jazz in Downtown. But first, I just want to talk a little bit, and Paige, maybe I'll toss it to you first, about the growth of programming at the MAC that we have been seeing, which is so exciting. We know this is a historic institution. And also, some of the things you have in store for 2026, because I think you and I and probably all of us are looking for those bright spots that artists are making in the world, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for having us. Really excited to be here. Uh, as you said, the Milford Arts Council is a historic institution. We've been around for about 52 years, and we oversee two antique buildings. One is the old eastbound Civil War era train station. We've been inside the MAC, which is our home base, for just over 30 years. And we have a smaller venue in Walnut Beach called the Firehouse Gallery, which is a 1920s firehouse, which we started working with and presenting in 2004. So the MAC has our offices, which is where I'm sitting, and it also has our intimate stage. It's a proscenium stage, and we present around 30 concerts in all genres of music, 3 main stage plays, open mic monthly, a comedy show monthly, literary open mic, and plays in development, sometimes film. We host meetings and special events, but we seat about 70 to 100 people. And I think, really look at ourselves as an essential listening room for the area. And musicians and thespians alike love performing on the stage because the natural acoustics of the room is so wonderful and warm and inviting. So that's kind of a snippet of where we've been and who we are.
And you already mentioned this a little bit, but I would love to talk about some both like existing and the new programming initiatives, which y'all like you hit the ground running in 2026. You wasted no time. So and I should say Raheem Nelson, who's with us, not only is director of marketing at the MAC, but also an artist yourself, and submitted this beautiful piece about Chris DePino and a quartet performing jazz, but also harmonica, which I feel like a lot of people talk about harmonica like it's a kazoo or a recorder or something like that. It gets a bad rap. And he brought it all and left it all on the stage. And and so like y'all are going. You're doing it. You're doing the work. So
Yeah,
talk
I
to me
think it's been
about, yeah.
yeah, I think it's been a saving grace for us actually to be as small as we are. Um, During the pandemic and pivoting as all organizations had to do, we really threw ourselves in reinventing how we present, how we think about ourselves, and being able to spin on a dime. Originally, when I started about 13 years ago, the season was a hard start in September and a finish in June, and we basically did nothing but inside theater camp during the summer. But the pandemic had us thinking out on our feet. We were outdoors. We were all over Milford and really rethinking about how we did everything. All of that combined with celebrating 50 years in 2022 geared us up for this amazing event that we have slated for October 3rd, 2026, called Jazz in Downtown. I've been thinking since the pandemic how can we move the organization forward? We were already doing so much regular programming, but again, our venue is so small. So it's hard to kind of get us off of that postage stamp and really in front and center as a economic driver and business partner for our really vibrant downtown. And I wanted to think about how do we take that intimacy and put it outdoors and side by side, our retail and restaurants, as well as our beautiful city amenities, our harbor, the train station, our duck ponds and waterfall, and the really wonderful walkability of downtown Milford, which I think a lot of people kind of like take for granted or don't even know it exists. So the idea was to take what I view as an essential art form of America, and that's jazz music. It really embraces every single nationality that has ever washed up on our shores. It involves a rediscovery and a assembly and ownership of almost every single generation who hears jazz and who wants to put their own stamp on it. So I really view it as a really just a beautiful a beautiful art form and a beautiful insignia of our country and our nation and our residents across the board. Combining that with the idea of an art stroll, I kind of took festivals that I've had attended in the years and the Mystic art. It's not really a stroll, but it's their art vendor where they shut down the streets of downtown Mystic, um, as well as other events in our experience of hosting our gala at Lismon Landing, the harbor, which is only a block and a half away from the train station, which is our home. So to really look at that as a snapshot and to create an event that put us front and center and then also allow people to experience everything that we do normally, but in a different way, and to really shoulder by shoulder present the program next to our retail partners and our restaurant partners in downtown. The city's ecstatic about the event, and we have their full backing. We already have a couple of lead sponsors. We have started booking our acts, and this is going to happen. So we've got 3 outdoor stages, and then in between, it will be meshed with an art stroll. We have dance lessons being presented here at the MAC so that people can experience our space as well. And we're going to close out at our Veterans Memorial Hall, which is the old high school auditorium behind City Hall, with a double closing concert in the evening. So it's an all-day event. It is open and accessible to everybody, and then there will be some VIP experiences that you can support the event and be guaranteed a seat at the outdoor venues and at the evening concert as well.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit, and Raheem, feel free to hop in. If you can talk also a little bit about, I love that it's in the fall, because I get totally overwhelmed in the best way, but by the amount of festivals between June, usually like the second week of June. Well, the first week of June is in New Haven Freddie Fixer weekend, and that like kind of is the unofficial start of summer. And then you're just like you're going gangbusters. It's
Go
like
time, yeah.
you have arts and ideas, you have stuff in Guilford, you have the Shoreline Jewish Festival, which is beautiful, usually in August. You have it's like boom, 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 boom. And it's this beautiful mad sprint to the end, for which I am very grateful, but it feels crazy, right? Um, and you kind of said it seems like you said like, oh, we're gonna do something in the fall.
Yeah. I think it's funny too, having all these internal discussions about jazz in downtown. And I remember the initial conversation I had with Paige about it and just how excited she was and passionate about making this our marquee signature event for the Milford Arts Council. And I know like this has already taken a lot of work, a lot of committee meetings and everything. I picture all this playing in my head like a movie where this goes so well. It's easier to discover all the other things that we do with our jazz series and our classical series. And I just know in my heart this is going to be like our signature marquee event where people are like, oh, that's the Milford Arts Council. They did Jazz in Downtown. They do this every year. It's going to go like A, B, and C. And I'm just really excited to be a part of it, like where we take the intimate experience we have within the walls of the Milford Arts Council and we bring it outdoors and we're having a whole new audience discover what we do. So I just know us as a MAC and our partners, like we're all going to be able to benefit from having like this signature event that's really going to just not only put the MAC on the map, but it's going to put Milford on the map as well.
It also, I mean, were both of you thinking about like it's not just in a year, it's a wild year politically, and we're not going to talk about that too much. But it's also America 250. And all across the state, historic organizations like the MAC, especially arts organizations and presenting organizations, have been doing really interesting or sort of announcing very interesting programming that sort of wraps itself around the very rich, often complicated, often multi-layered history of America and art making in America. And Paige, as you alluded to earlier, I think jazz is at the very intersection of that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was definitely in the back of my brain when I started percolating on, how do we create, as Raheem so eloquently said, a marquee event. And again, I wanted to stay true to what we do inside the MAC, which again is so warm and inviting and welcoming and intimate. And that intimacy is amazing. And I wanted to be true to that. But keeping in the back of my brain the 250th anniversary of our country as kind of like the goal. So when I was percolating and starting to talk about it and feeling people out and putting it on paper and making it feel real, I was like, this is going to happen sometime during the 250th. It has to be the inaugural year. It has to be that nod to who we are as a society, a nation, and a country, and what it really feels to be an American. And I think jazz. I mean, I've been really toying with the fact of trying to get Ken Burns' jazz documentary shown, and I still may cobble that in somehow. Um, but it's like 10 or 12 episodes long. I mean, it would be like 4 months of a Tuesday night, but who knows? I just remember watching that over and over again, and that idea of being able to tell an entire history of a country and a people through an art form and being able to follow it. I mean, it really is amazing. And when I use the phrase, it's every single nationality that's ever washed upon our shores, it is. Countries who had no idea what jazz was, once they become an American, their musicians will find a way to incorporate themselves into the quilt of what jazz is. And it just really is beautiful and everything we as arts organizations and artists want to see for our country. And because it's always changing, it's still an art form of possibility. And I think that that's what you want to think about for your own country, no matter what country you're from, is you are a country of possibilities. And you're always looking to the future of what can be and what still can be.
You just said like four things that I want to unpack. But that's so interesting, and I'll come back to that. But you're absolutely right that sort of this idea of possibility, I love that framing because it is literally baked into the art form, right? With the fact that there are improvised solos. And I remember talking last month, I spoke to a high school jazz band. So they're young, right? They're just figuring it out. But they were most nervous for the solos because they were like, well, what if I muck it up? And I was like, you're not going to. You can't just play what's in your heart. You got this. You have a good ear. You can do this. And so I think I love framing it with this language of possibility. I'm also wondering, maybe I'll go to Raheem first and then come back to you. We've talked about music before many times. I'm wondering for you, like, was jazz a formative part of your childhood, your evolution as an artist?
Yeah, so I think just in this conversation, for one, I'm thinking like what we do at the Mac itself is like jazz, where it's like, okay, we want it to look like this, but we might have to improvise. Like maybe we have to like focus on this area or focus on that area, and it's fluid and it's transformative and it's hopeful as well. So that's like the Mac facing lens that I see. For myself as an artist, I absolutely love jazz and I love hip hop and I love the marriage of both and I love a lot of different forms of music. One of my favorite musicians is a hip hop artist, but he's also big into jazz. And like that's all he has his son listen to is jazz music. And he's somebody that I've seen perform at the Blue Note Jazz Club as well. And even looking at the most recent concert we had, Chris Stapino, I realized like right before he, like maybe like a few days before he performed on the Mac stage, that he actually knew and played with somebody that my dad has played with, Vaughn Collins of Boogie Chillin'. And my dad was a part of that band as well in their heyday. So like I love having all of these things that cross over with my role at the Mac, my role as a New Haven based artist, and my love of music, and being able to riff with Chris on the fact that he has like these, degrees of separation with my upbringing as an artist and my love of music. Because like just watching my dad play his harmonica because he was big on that as well, and play his bass guitar and all the percussion instruments that he would play when he was performing in this band, and then being able to capture Chris's set and then his history with the Metro North, my history as a commuting artist going to New York City. Like there were just all these threads that tied everything together that just causes me to like really enjoy what I do at the Mac because there's like a correlation between my New Haven history and then what I'm learning about Milford. And I know jazzing downtown is going to just continue to bring all these different things together.
I was gonna say, I think it's like people forget, but like there was for a very long time in Greater New Haven, like it was a hub for jazz. The jazz scene was hopping, and now not so much. You have a couple of venues. You have like really standout. Oh, we have so many standout performers across the region. We're very, very lucky. I'm thinking of like the Sands brothers, who are originally from Orange, studied at ECA in New Haven. I'm thinking obviously of Chris, who is such an just like endlessly interesting guy. Um, but that, like, people need to be reminded of that history, I have found, especially when I'm talking to younger folks or in classrooms. Like, students have no idea that this was part of the area's history in like not that long ago, in the 20th century.
No, absolutely. I think that, and it's just so wonderful. I've known a lot of Raheem's background, but it's always fun to kind of hear somebody speak in those little short elevator talks or whatever. It kind of puts it in a nutshell. It's nice. So thank you. For myself, and I recently did this as I introduced one of the past concerts that we did, the Mac Bash, which is a indoor bluegrass celebration and roots music that we do every January. Um, and I introduced it by talking about the fact that as a kid, as a young person, I did not follow bands. I didn't have my own record album. I wasn't going to concerts. I think I'm probably the only person of my generation who grew up in Connecticut who has never been to Toads. So yeah, there's that. Um, but
There's still time, Paige.
there
There's
is, there
still
is, there
time.
is. Um, my parents loved music, so they had album collections and listened to public radio. My mother loved classical and folk music, and my father loved classical jazz. In particular, with his classical vein, he loved organ music, so he was very big on our church when he was like helped raise money and fund the rebuilding of our church organ, and then hosted organ concerts for the public, which was a lot of fun growing up. His college roommate, who was actually my brother's godfather, was also a student of the organ and traveled the world. And one of the things that my brother and I, when we were kids, discovered in the guest room one time after his visit is he left behind his entire collection of Herb Albert albums. So we would sit there and listen to Herb Albert because the album covers were always Whipped Cream, I think is like one of his famous albums, was very James Bond-esque with scantily dressed women. We thought they were listening to like bad music. I mean, we're talking we were little. Anyway, so I love that. And then I fell in love with musicals, became a theater kid, was in my high school musicals, and started listening to Broadway and discovered as a 15-year-old Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, the American Songbook, the Rat Pack, all of that. So by the time I got into college, that's what my audio tapes and CDs and albums were, and what I really, really listened to. Um, and then when I got married, my husband was a classical conductor. Um, so I listened to more classical music and went to the Met and heard opera. He was friends with Nello Santi, who was the lead conductor of the Met Opera program. And then after my divorce, my husband, partner in crime now, is a huge WPKN and bluegrass folk fan. So I started going to festivals. So my life is cobbled together by life experiences and a real hodgepodge. But I think that's also what helped me become um, desiring to actually become the executive director of the Milford Arts Council. And this stage is so important for music, and I've really, like I said, pushed the element of quality and variety as much as I can. And you wanted to talk about what we've got coming up and the fact that we seem to be doing more programming. I remember coming out of the pandemic again, I sat down at a table with some of our civic leaders and lead sponsors, and I said, what do you think we could do to improve? And it was a resounding do more. And I'm sitting there scratching my head going, how on earth could we do more? Um, and I had a staff member who had one of those big Staples red buttons. No, absolutely not. No, no. And every single time I exited my office and would say, hey, how about, he's like, no, absolutely not. Um, so to have that, I put metal to the pedal and just kind of put drive. And we've been pushing. Our calendar is probably the busiest it has ever been, which was another push to create an event like Jazzin because I had nowhere else to go. I couldn't push the venue any further. Um, we do over 250 events. I think I tallied up the need of volunteer hours, which we're so desperately in need of our regular season. We need over 4,500 hours of volunteers to do what we do. That's crazy. But being small and being as busy as we have been, I think has really shown well and served us well. And I think, with Raheem's help, we've been pushing our ticket sales and most of our events. And this fall and winter so far have been doing really, really well. Like I said, we're only asking for 75 people. It's not a big ask. And we've got phenomenal restaurants downtown. It's an easy hop off the train station. We are inside the train station. I mean, what could be better?
And I will say, y'all have a jazz series, so I feel like you're built like it. This isn't totally from the ground. It is from the ground up, but you're building from something.
Correct. And I will say that somebody you mentioned earlier, the Sands brothers,
Yes.
their mother, Stephanie Sands, has actually been building our jazz program for the past. This is our third season working with her. So she brings us friends and musicians that both Christian and Ryan have worked with. They've been spreading the word. And, Mama Sands, as a lot of them call her, she's got a long list of people who she meets and develops relationships with. So we've been more than lucky. It's been a blessing. And I love the little story with Stephanie Sands is she always dreamed about owning and running a jazz club called Pennies. So I kind of broached her by saying, "Hey, how about you open Pennies here at the Mac and fill this space with jazz?" So that's what she's been doing. And we had Chris DiPino last week. We've had the queen of the violin for jazz violin. We've had a violinist. Um, it's been, like I said, it's really been amazing. Some of the performers that we've had over the past 3 years will be performing at the Jazz Fest. I won't say who. And we will also be having one of the lead groups of, I would say, they're not as young as I want to say they are. They're younger than me. But that whole like homegrown New Haven jazz scene, um, one of their groups, and they have lots of members, so they can kind of like shift with sands, so to speak, depending on the venue and the need. Um, we're going to be paying homage to New Haven jazz artists for sure. Our hope is, or not hope, it will happen. We're planning on inviting all of our restaurants downtown to actually host jazz solo and duos during the lunch and dinner hours. So literally, you're going to be able to soak up jazz for 12 hours on that day.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I mean, it's also I guess jazz is always timely because it is so fundamentally American, right? Um, but it also feels timely and maybe even urgent because we have all of these living jazz legends who are still among us, but they may not be with us for for that much longer, for decades and decades to come.
Right.
Because they were doing it decades ago. You had, I mean, Dinky Johnson passed last year and lived in West Haven. No, he passed in West Haven, but lived on the shoreline. And it's interesting also that you brought up the organ because he was an avid organist and that was so much a part of his life. And then would like go play jazz at the Armory, cut his teeth with the Buster Brothers in New Haven. I mean, it was really interesting stuff. But to give those folks their flowers before they pass
Yeah.
is beautiful. That's just, we can learn so much from our elders. And so to be carving out that space is really special.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, to put that in perspective, one of the performers that we actually had booked passed. So yeah, it's a treasure trove that we need to be acknowledging and, always bringing to the surface.
I also want to ask, so I just want to remind folks if they're just joining us, this is Arts Respond on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. I'm your host, Lucy Gellman, and today I am here with Paige Miglio, the Executive Director of the Milford Arts Council, and Raheem Nelson, the Director of Marketing at the Milford Arts Council, and artist, illustrator, Renaissance man, graphic recorder, which maybe is like what lives under illustration. We can have a whole other interview about that. Um, I also just want to ask you, like, in this moment, I think it's interesting, Paige, that you mentioned that, ticket sales have been doing pretty well because what I'm seeing in the wider arts landscape is both like people who feel a little bit wary about spending money just because they have less of it. And the arts, unfortunately, are like one of the first things that goes when people feel like they have less discretionary spending. But then also at the same time, you have folks who are looking for community. And the arts, as we know, for like millennia, have gathered community. Like I'm sure that there were cave people telling stories around a fire, and that, that's the first oral history that you have. And so, I'm wondering also like how you are looking to the arts, both jazz and downtown, and the programming that's running at the Mac as a way to just like capture and harness and summon these bright spots when the world around us, I think it's safe to say, like, can feel pretty scary and pretty dark.
Yeah, I think again it comes down to the intimacy. And I think that that's something that we have going for us. It's something that I really kind of like push into. Um, the feeling of and also I think during when we were coming out of the pandemic and all, prior marketing director and I used to talk a lot about what we would call the space in between. And the space in between is something that exists on so many different levels. For art forms, the space in between are the rests and crescendos in music. It is the bend of a dancer. It is the negative space in a piece of artwork. Um, but on a more transactional and personal level, an impact. It is the space in between you and the person sitting next to you in the dark, sharing a piece of music and experience. And that space in between exists between the performer and the audience. Um, there are a lot of performers who perform on our stage in between our phenomenal sound engineers that we have who work with us, but also their interaction with the audience. It's a really, really it's a space that lives with them after they perform. And I think that finding those bright spots, it's also finding the warmth of community. Um, and it's something that you can experience together. You can talk about it, but it's also something you can walk out the door, not having said a word to anybody in the room with you, but yet it's a shared experience that you're going to take with you. It's a shared experience that you got to shake the hand or been able to listen to music and actually watch the experience wash across the face of the performer, whether they're in a play or whether they're up there performing music. That's intimacy and a personal impact experience that you you can't get everywhere. Um, and I think that that's really, what it is about. I mean, we have overhead in two venues. We have support of our city, which is highly unusual for a lot of arts organizations. But we still need our members. We still need our donors. We still need our sponsors. We still need to, charge what we can for tickets. We try and keep them as reasonable as possible. But also, it's pushing the envelope and realizing that to bring in the caliber of talent that we're bringing in, um, we try and budget our tickets to performer based upon, what's coming in and what's going out. But basically, the ticket is what pays the performer. So your ticket is actually going into the pocket of the artist. Everything else, 90% of everything else comes from donations, comes from the membership dues, comes from the sponsorships. Um, it takes a village to do what we do, for sure.
It does. Raheem, I saw you nodding along, so jump on
Yeah,
that.
I definitely want to add to that and riff off of what Paige is saying. Um, I've come to the Mac as, working marketing director, photographer, doing stories alongside with the Arts Council, of course. And I think if I'm coming to work or if I'm coming just to enjoy the show, there is that feeling of intimacy. And the word that keeps popping up in my head is sanctuary or safe haven. Like there's just so much going on in the world right now. And being able to come enjoy a show, work a show, enjoy these amazing acoustics, see all the smiling faces when people are performing, whether it's a stage play or if it's a classical, jazz concert, rock concert, what have you. Like just seeing how happy people are when they come into the space, like, oh, I've never heard of this, or I'm really looking forward to seeing the show tonight. And then we have people that will have like when the intermission happens, they'll get up out of their seats, go down to our beautiful speakeasy, grab a drink, and then go back to their seats and then continue the conversation on what they're enjoying. And then sometimes even have a conversation with the performer. Like I really enjoyed that Chris went out into the audience and he thanked everybody for coming and he had these conversations. And I could tell there was a really great performer audience member relationship being formed. And I just see that each and every time we go have a show. And there's really like no place like the Mac. Like we're an arts council. We also have another venue for exhibitions. We have exhibitions in our main area as well, and then we have these beautiful performances. So I just think like even if I wasn't working at the Mac per se, like it's just a world class venue, and I really can't say enough about it. Like if you're not coming to enjoy production at the Mac, like like you're missing out. Seriously.
That's what that was my next question, which is, for folks who haven't been, what's your like your 1 minute elevator pitch? And you did it. You did the thing.
Yeah, I try.
So I also wanted to ask both of you what is filling your cups right now? Because even when you love what you do, I find that working in the arts right now is it's stressful. I was talking to someone from CT Arts Alliance the other day and I was like, is this just me? Like, am I not processing the trauma of the world? And he was like, no, it's everyone's stressed. Everyone's feeling this right now. So how are you, keeping yourselves healthy, uh, and making sure that your cups are full because you can't pour into other people if you have nothing to pour.
Yeah, I think that for myself, again, I kind of come to this role having had my fingers in a lot of different pies. Um, Growing up, I also drew since I can remember. My trade before I got into this job was visual art. So I designed a lot of children's books, educational textbooks, and then illustrated children's books for a number of years. And I've done portrait work, I've done mural work. And everybody's like, when I started this job, well, what about your art? And I said, no, this is my art. The fact that I get to delve into a little bit of architecture, which I also love and dabbled with architecture classes, interior design when I was in high school and college. Um, to antique buildings. I get to work on renovations and keeping them, front and center in people's minds and keeping that visual experience up to date and refreshed as often as I can, to being able to help book the music that we have here. Worked with a lot of different partners and agents and agencies as well as individual artists. Um, we work with not only our own community theater group, Eastbound, but we also are the home for a separate 501c3, Panticino Productions, who do their own homegrown musicals. Um, so that happens here. And then it's also all the visual arts and the exhibits that happen. So it's like the art is what I live and breathe every single day from me. And I think finally this year I began looking a little bit inward to reclaim some of that individual artwork. And I treated myself to a wonderful trip to Italy this fall and took a plein air course. And then a friend of mine in town, another business partner, she just renovated her barn to include a little art studio. So she has actually gifted me the ability to put an easel up. And we are trying to meet 2 or 3 hours at once a week and actually paint. Um, I'm hoping that that can happen on a more regular basis. Work does poke its head. And it's kind of hard to relegate that, but I am, trying to build that boundary for myself as an individual. But it is about building boundaries, and I try and tell staff that all the time because we are always doing above and beyond what is on our paper as our jobs, for sure.
So I think for me, it's just making everything work together and finding those spaces and places where things can overlap. A good friend of mine, Lee Busby, has been visiting the space more, and he just got an honorary mention for a show we have running right now. It's a portrait exhibition, experimental portraits, and he'll come by and just chat, and I'd introduce him to the space. But now I see him contributing work, and then he showed Paige one of the big portraits that he did. So being able to share what I'm doing as marketing director, and then showing off the space to my New Haven friends and family and people from surrounding areas has helped create that work-life balance, and also that sense of pride. Like, hey, like look where I work, like look at the kind of stuff that I'm contributing to. And then having this job and being able to contribute to other artists, I think is really important for me. And that's also bled over into my personal work. I had a showing, I think like 2 years ago or so, at our Firehouse Gallery, and it was a Black History Month art show. And being able to have a lot of my friends contribute work and help them curate their pieces and put them on the walls of the Firehouse Gallery was really amazing. We even turned that into like a live podcast episode that my friend Kobe had as well. And they just kept telling me like, oh, this is a safe space. Like I feel really good here. Like I had no idea this existed. So again, like finding that overlap between Raheem Nelson, marketing director, Raheem Nelson, visual artist, and just having that happy marriage has been like really phenomenal.
So the last thing I want to ask is, if folks are listening and they say, I want to know more about the Mac, and they should, if you're listening, that should be your reaction. And I want to know more about jazz and downtown. What are the different ways? I just pulled up y'all's Instagram. Oh, and it has a beautiful link tree. I love a link tree. Yeah. So what are the different ways that folks can find you and plug into the good and just necessary and enjoy making art that you are programming right now?
Definitely. So definitely our website first, milfordarts.org, and it has our full calendar. We have a slider at the very top, so you'll be able to see our current offerings. And then we also have our featured events page. So it's like all on the one page there. We have opportunities for volunteers, sponsorships, and you can even check out our mission as well. Like everything's on the website for that. For our Instagram, it's milford.arts, and you'll be able to see reels, short form content. We do some interviews here and there. So that's a really great way to just find out more about us and our current offerings too. And then we're also on Facebook as well, Milford Arts Council. So you can find us in those different channels. And we're also working on something special for the summer as well. I've been working with a good friend of ours who is a local DJ as well. She has her own business called Manifest Beauty. Her name is Sanja, and we've been doing a series of artist interviews and patron interviews. And we hope to have that out around the summertime. And it'll be more like short form and long form content that we'll be putting on YouTube and Instagram. So just to have that curated, personal, and intimate experience that you get at the Milford Arts Council and kind of conveying that to our audience.
I think I'll finish up just by, touting as an example the offerings just for the month of January. Now, I said we work with two community theater groups, or a community theater and a professional theater group. So basically September, October, December, February, half of April, half of May, and June are all theater months, which means other than open mic and comedy, we're not producing any other events during those months. That's 6 months of our calendar, which means November, January, March, half of April, half of May, we push as much music into our four walls as possible. And we produce and present, I would say 4 to 6 concerts during those months. So January, just as an example, we started out with a rental with our Milford Pride group. They did a drag ball, which was amazing. They completely transformed the space and had a lot of fun. And it's been fun kind of watching their journey on Instagram as well, and are sharing their events. January 10th was the Mac Bash. We had 3 amazing roots, storytelling, bluegrass bands here on the stage, which was 4 hours of music, 3 bands. Last week we had Chris DiPino. Tonight we have 2 concerts, which if you're looking for something to do before everybody gets snowed in, It is a retro throwback to the 80s and 90s underground indie rock scene. A band that used to play in the 80s and 90s, they've since disbanded, called Altimeter, but their band leader is now a Milford resident, a figurehead of our open mic, and a board member, Tim Topalian, Lucky T. And he suggested a band that they used to perform with alongside the underground rock scene, indie rock scene, called Life in a Blender, who are still performing. And they are the genuine ticket. So if you love They May Be Giants, Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, I mean, that type of genre of music, they're the real deal. They're going to be here tonight. And they asked Tim if he could pull together Altimeter, who have not performed together in 25 years, and he's doing it. So if you want to do like a retro throwback to your 80s, 90s indie rock vibe, tonight's your night. And it's only $30 for the double concert. So tickets are still available. Doors open at 7. Showtime is at 7:30. You'll be done by 9:30. You can still hit the town for drinks afterwards or do dinner beforehand. Next Friday, we close out January with a classical concert with the amazing Winona Wang, with one of our presenting partners, Concert Artists Guild out of New York, CAG, which really lift up emerging classical and jazz performers across the country. And we've been so lucky to present at least one, if not two, of their roster performers in our space for the past 4 years. So Winona was here 3 years ago, and she returns next week on Friday the 30th. So tickets are up for that concert as well. That's just 1 month of music.
I love it. I love this. And I love the both existing and new partnerships that y'all are building out. I want to thank both of you so much for coming on Arts Respond with me, spending your chilly Friday afternoon, although it's about to get much colder. So, enjoy those
Balmy today.
I was going to say those balmy,
Mhm.
like 34-degree temperatures when you can, because I think tomorrow is supposed to be about 6 degrees. And, Godspeed to everyone on Sunday. I think
Yep.
it's so funny to me because like we're in New England, and so we've lived through snowstorms before.
Yeah.
But may everything be okay. May no pipes freeze at the Mac or in your respective homes,
Mhm.
and may no programming be delayed by the weather.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy, and everybody for
Yeah,
putting
thank you,
together
Lucy.
and having us on.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Be well for everybody.
Yes.
Mhm.
Take care, y'all.
You too.